up, everybody? Nate here. And President Joe Biden's plan to forgive around $460 billion in federal student loans was essentially just blocked by the Supreme Court. Now, the original plan was to forgive around $10,000 to $20,000 worth of federal student loan debt for the 42.5 million federal student loan borrowers. This plan has been under consideration since a federal judge blocked it back in November. But now billions of dollars are about to become due for every single American borrower. And due to our economy slowing down today, that could seriously hurt. A quick disclaimer here, I am not a lawyer. So if you want the true court filings for this entire case, you might want to go see the actual documents that have been published. But I'll kind of break things down in a way that I can understand and hopefully make you understand if you're also not a lawyer. So now, why exactly did the Supreme Court block the measure? Well, they believe that Congress is the only one that can give the president the authority to forgive billions of dollars in student loans if no laws were broken. Biden administration has already gone through and forgiven billions of dollars in student loans for some colleges and universities that may have been breaking the law. ITT Tech was a big one, and that meant that anybody that essentially went to that school and took out loans to go to that school, well, a lot of those people ended up getting their student loans completely forgiven. But this plan from Biden was for all borrowers across the entire country. Reason for that is because these funds that ultimately get forgiven, well, they're not just going to disappear. They ultimately have to be paid back by somebody. And when we talk about paying somebody back, well, Congress is the only one that can sort of authorize funds being created in the United States. The president can't tell the Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve that they need to just go out and print money. Congress can pass a bill, and then Congress can decide what needs to be printed from there. So because this plan involved a lot of funds either being created or tax dollars being pulled from the American citizens, well, that meant that Congress needed to be involved in some way, according to the Supreme Court. Now, with federal student loans being completely blocked, what exactly does that mean? Well, first and foremost, this means that federal student loan repayments are going to resume in October. Many Americans, since basically the pandemic started, have had all of their federal student loan payments in forbearance, and they also weren't collecting any interest on those loans. So if you were making payments during that entire time, that means those payments was going directly to the principal. But you didn't necessarily have to make payments, and now it's been a little bit over 3 years. Like I said before, those payments are going to be resuming in October. President Biden and his administration are working on an alternative plan to sort of kind of help out borrowers in the short term. One of the things they're doing is sort of easing the income-driven repayment plan. So before, you had to contribute at least 10% of all of your income towards federal student loan payments, but now they're looking to drop that to around 5%. That can help ease the burden for a lot of people when it comes to actually paying back their student loans, but it is not going to eliminate them. When it comes to President Biden's first plan and when it comes to this new plan, well, many people have considered these plans to not go nearly far enough to sort of eliminate this federal student loan issue in the United States. Many millennials, myself included, have a ton of federal student loan debt, and according to the Biden administration and a lot of experts, this is preventing a lot of millennials and members of Gen Z from starting a business and putting that money back into the economy. Obviously, federal student loans have become such a huge issue in the United States because of the rising costs of school. Over the last 20 or 30 years or so, the cost to go to a 4-year college or university has exploded. But one of the bigger issues is that people are getting out of school, and the amount of money that they're going to make at their new job right out of college is not going to be nearly enough to pay back these loans, which is really frustrating for an entire generation that was basically told in order to be successful, you had to go to college. So now, what exactly can we expect from federal student loans in the future? Well, federal student loans are not going anywhere, and the biggest reason for that is because they are the biggest moneymaker for the federal government. The federal government only has a couple different ways to bring in revenue. It can tax its citizens, which nobody really likes. Nobody wants their taxes to go up, or it can print money, but that simply just causes inflation because now people have more, the monetary supply goes up, and a lot more spending happens. So one of the things that the federal government has worked on is it's tried to get a lot more revenue in from federal student loans, and there is now hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions of dollars out there related to federal student loan debt. If the federal government was to eliminate all of that debt and eliminate federal student loans in the first place, well, that would be a huge revenue maker completely gone. Part of the reason why it's such a huge money maker for the federal government is because they guarantee loans for anybody that wants to go to school through direct, subsidized, and unsubsidized subsidized loans. They've been doing this for a very, very long time now, and the reason for it is because in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, well, technology was advancing, and the jobs of the future, it seemed like we're going to need a college degree. But the issue was going to school was expensive, so a lot of people couldn't afford it, and the government was kind of in a weird situation where if they didn't pay for it, then people wouldn't be able to get the jobs that they need to advance our economy. So they guaranteed loans for people to go to school. Well, once they started to sort of guarantee loans for people to go to school, well, now colleges essentially just charged whatever they wanted in tuition for people to attend classes. It didn't really matter because everybody was taking out loans to go to school, so prices went up like crazy very quickly. All of those loans are completely guaranteed as well, so they're getting money from the federal government here. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the federal government really isn't going anywhere anytime soon. So that was a sure bet from school, so they just kept cranking up the prices and cranking up the prices, and people just kept going to school. Now the prices are so high though, it's nearly impossible to go to school and actually get a true value out of the degree that you want to get. It's because some people have to take out sometimes 6 figures in student loans just to get a job that is basically going to pay you entry level. And obviously that is not the situation for everybody. There is still a lot of career fields and a lot of career paths that you can go down that you don't have to take out huge student loans in order to get a well-paying job. But that's not everybody. And the fact of the matter is there is people going to school taking out debt, even if it's just a little bit of debt, and they're starting their first years out of college saddled with that debt. And that can create a big problem when they go to put money back into the economy, start a business, or just do anything. One of the other issues is even if this student loan debt was completely forgiven, well, that doesn't really solve the root of the problem, which is the rising cost of school. There's still going to be millions of Americans that end up going to school after this point, which means at some point you're going to have more and more money that could potentially need to be forgiven. You're going to have Generation Z or future generations saddled with hundreds of billions of dollars in debt, just like the millennials and previous generations were. Well, like I mentioned before, I think this is sort of a problem that could potentially go away in the future, simply because there are a lot fewer people going to school. If you look at college admission rates, well, they have been steadily dropping for a very long time now, and part of the reason for that is because people are starting to realize school isn't necessarily a necessity for success. Especially if you want to have financial success. I've said this on this channel a bunch now, but if you want to have financial success, you don't necessarily have to get a college degree. Generation Z knows this. Some younger millennials understand this, and they realize that going to school just to get a job that you're going to work at from 9 to 5 every day is not the key to financial success. Investing is. And you don't need a degree in order to invest. Now, should you be educated on investing? Absolutely. Should you understand what you're investing in before you do it? 100%. But the beauty of it is you don't necessarily have to. You can start investing as a beginner a very small amount in order to grow your wealth over time. And that is a great thing about the country that we live in. Not to mention, I think people are going to continue to be smart and continue to be innovative despite not having gone to school, because we have things like YouTube, because we have online courses that people can take, and trade schools. People are deciding that those are the ways that they want to learn. They'd prefer to learn from somebody on YouTube who's probably done it, has built a business, or has innovated in a way that's going to really help a student, rather than to learn from somebody who's only learned and experienced from a book. That makes the new generations really dangerous, and it shifts the whole idea of how much school is going to cost. Sure, there's still going to be people that need to go to school. If you need to have practical training and you need to have physical training, like if you're a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, yeah, you're probably going to have to go to school, and you probably should go to school. But I wouldn't be completely surprised if the trend continues to go down in the United States for a very, very long time, which means that student loan debt bubble is most likely going to continue to shrink over time, at least in my opinion. But now, if you're somebody sitting here saying, Nate, I have thousands of dollars in student loans that aren't being forgiven, what exactly do I do now? Well, just keep in mind here that even if you kind of do take your income repayment plans and lower them as much as possible, or if you go to refinance your loans, these plans are not perfect. Financing right now is going to be really, really difficult because the Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates to sort of bring down inflation. With them raising interest rates, that is going to affect the interest rate that you get on a refinance. Refinancing anything, whether it's a mortgage or an auto loan or your student loans. So you might not get as as great of a rate if you go that route. Not to mention your payments are going to be spread out over a longer period of time, which means you're going to have to be paying them for much longer. The same if you contribute the absolute minimum with the income-driven repayment plan. Yes, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get by, but just know your payments are going to be spread out for much longer, which means you're going to be paying into that debt a whole lot longer. Now, this might make a lot of sense for you. It really just depends on how much student loan debt you actually have and how long you have to pay them off. But just know the longer it takes you to pay off those loans, the more you're going to be putting in interest, and the more you pay towards interest, so away from the amount that you could be contributing to an investment plan to build your wealth. So what I recommend is sort of educating yourself on the entire process and now starting to figure out, well, what exactly can I do about these loans? Because what you should not do is absolutely refuse to pay them off. Student loans are extremely difficult to get rid of, and just not paying them is going to be very harmful to your credit and also your financial future. So I do not recommend doing that. But obviously, make your own decision, do what you need to do. Don't listen to a random guy like me on YouTube. Learn the facts, talk to a financial advisor if you need to, and figure out what exactly is the next step for you and your student loans. The bottom line here is that student loans are not going away anytime soon, so we're going to be talking about this issue for a very, very long time. So you need to be educated on the process. That way, you can make the best decision for your future and for your money. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the federal student loan issue. Do you think that federal student loans should be completely forgiven? Are you somewhere in the middle? Or do you think that everybody that took out student loans should have to pay all of that money back down to the penny? That is it for me, everybody. Be kind out there, and I'll see you all in the next one.